What did you say when you knew that poem perfectly? I know it by heart, not by head or mind or brain, but I know it by heart. The heart implies the totality of the mind, something deeper and more stable than the usual thinking apparatus. To have a pure heart is to have a clean, steady mind, the state of Nirodha.
Hello and welcome to the Sutra Squad podcast, brought to you by One Deep Breath. My name is Seth Barron. I am here with the Superstar Sutra Squad. I got it out. I did it. Superstar Sutra Squad.
You made. I was waiting.
Sally Moore.
Hello.
And Sarah Page Hall.
Hey there.
And it is just an absolute privilege to be with both of you and to be with all of you listening or watching. We've been in a phase of the sutra study that is just so rich, and I keep just chewing on it because it's so every time we've done this, and every time we come back to the beginning, every time we come back to this trilogy, this is one of my favorite sections of the Yoga Sutra, because it's just it all comes back home to this. And today we're going to talk about Sutra 1.3, which is the completion of this little cycle of the beginning of the text. But before we do that, Sarah Page Hall, what is one word that describes how you feel right now in this very moment?
Joyful. It just popped up, so I'm going to go with it. Joyful.
Beautiful. Sally?
Determined.
Ooh. I've never heard you make that sound before.
I've never heard you growl.
I growl like those grandkids all the time.
I feel, full. My heart feels full in such a beautiful way. I'm going to make a special shout out because it's my god baby mama's birthday. And so she's a woman who's the mother of my two godchildren, and she's my oldest friend. We grew up together. She lived around the corner, and she has literally seen my life in pretty much every single phase of my expression. I'm talking since we were 3 and I was 3 and she was 5. And I'm going to say that because I sent her a text this morning, and I just said how much I've said I love you with my whole heart and body and soul, and she's my sister in every way that is not biological, but every way that is psychological. And but what I called her today because I was thinking about her kids, who my just incredible godchildren, who are the oldest. My godson is 15. And it's really wild when you have kids in your life who are ages that you remember. I remember being 15, clearly. He's a freshman in high school. It's but he's also such a sweet and thoughtful kid. And my goddaughter Ariana, who's 11, and what I said because I had said earlier in the day that I was I'm so glad I'm not a child in this world today of social media, and I would just be I don't know how I would handle it. But I'm so blessed I have these kids in my life who are not phone addicts, are really engaged with people. And it's such a blessing to have children in your life who you have a relationship with that's not totally mitigated by technology, and they're not in the devices all the time. And they're not perfect kids, and my friends aren't perfect parents, but they're doing a really good job. and it's the hardest job, and it's not any easier in today's world. And so I don't that's part of
what's her name?
Very present for me. Aurora.
Happy birthday, Aurora.
Happy birthday, Aurora.
Oh my God, she's Aurora the princess.
I was going to say Princess Aurora.
I'm deep in princesses at my house.
Oh, okay. I always think of her as the bringer of the dawn.
Oh, no. That's way more poetic than what I know.
And I'll just say that, like, I don't want to dox her or give her her last name, but it's just like she married a man and she took his last name, and her husband Sam, who I just like could not possibly love more. She like and his they're just exceptional human beings. So shout out to you guys. Love you.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday. So yeah, my heart is just like full. It's full.
Sweet.
Okay. Let's talk about Yoga Sutra 1.3. As a quick reminder, we begin at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning at now. And it's now. It's always now. What time is it?
Now.
It's now. Can't be then. Ever. It's always now. And that's literally like the beginning of the text. Atha Yoga Anushasanam in 1.1. Now this is yoga. Yoga is this auspicious, eternal, and ephemeral now. And then we get to the juicy definition, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is when we bring to stillness the swirls of our mind. And, we talked last week and had such a beautiful conversation about how when I think of we're all prisoners of our native tongue, so to say. And like in English, restraint has this like as if it's like you're pressing it down, like I have to restrain. It's it's almost like oppressive sort of connotation, like the subtext of that word, right? As opposed to like the restraint of a hug, like the restraint of like swaddling a baby. My godson Elliot, who now I'm going to talk about Elliot, he's the first baby I ever swaddled. And I remember I was like so afraid to like do it wrong. And like I had never, he was like the first like infant I really like spent time with. And even though they were in San Francisco, I was out there like almost like once a month. I spent a lot of time with him as an infant. There's just like a adorable picture of the two of us passed out on the couch, and he's like, he's sleeping on me. And I remember like my friend saying like, no, the nurse told us we got to do it tighter. And like, you got to burrito that baby. And like, and they like, you like roll them on and then you roll them back. And like, that's the nirodha. Like, and that's just like, I'm still like, it's taken me 5+ years of this, like a focused study, right. To like even start to grok that. It's not like this, like, I have to stop my thoughts. It's like, I have to like bring them in to like love them enough to allow them to be still. So that's the 1.2. Like that's yoga, the bringing in, the bringing together. And then we get to this verse in Sutra 1.3, which I will chant and then we'll talk about. So if you'd like, you can just take a moment, if it is safe for you to do so. Find a little length in your seat. Find a little intention in the organization of your body. And if you want to close your eyes, you could just turn that attention in and just shift out of the being, out of the doing, and step back into the observing. Notice what you see or hear or taste or smell or touch. Without having it to be any different than exactly as it is. And maybe notice if there's an emotional state or if there's a thought sort of rattling around up there. And you don't have to change it. You don't even have to label it as good or bad or right or wrong. See if you can just step back and watch it with curiosity. Sometimes I think of myself like the cartoon anthropologists that are like in the bushes watching the natives. Like I'm watching my own mind. Like, oh, look at that thought go. Oh, there's another one spinning up. Phew. And then I'm going to make one vibration of Om, and you're more than welcome to join me. Let's take a deep breath in together and a deep breath out together. And for one vibration of Om, inhale. Chanting Yoga Sūtra 1.3. Tadadrastu svarupe vastanam. Tadadrastu svarupe vastanam. Tadadrastu svarupe vastanam. Okay, another short verse. So we've got some time and space to be very curious about like how these words function. So one of them, this is another moment where there's the Santi of yogic, of Sanskrit grammar. The four words are tada, actually there's a long A in the other one, drastu, svarupe, avasthanam. When it's chanted, it's the first two words sound just like they are, tada, drastu, and then there's this thing that happens, svarupe and avasthanam. And to avoid that like stoppage of airflow, the pronunciation is, at least to the best of my admittedly limited study, is svarupe vastanam. So even if you just like out there in the world, like you can say it to yourself, right? Like instead of saying svarupe avastanam, you can hear there's a glottal a to like stop the flow of air, as opposed to that like svarupe vastanam. It's just interesting to notice. Okay. So tada. I love this one. Because tada is like, ta-da! Like then at that time in that case, like, yeah, like tada, like tada, there it is, like, right? And then we get into some fascinating words. Drastu. So the root of drastu, if it sounds familiar and if you have an asana practice, you might have heard the word drishti. And it's the same root, which is drish, D-R, like an r sound and a sh sound, drish, which is to see, perceive, or understand. And so then this is an interesting like conjugation of that verb, drastu. And it's usually translated as seer, S-E-E-R in English. And that's not seer as in like an oracle or a fortune teller. Sometimes that's the connotation of this word. In this case, it's more like the observer, the one who sees, right? Like the first person in action of the sight. And then svarupe is usually translated as something along the lines of true self. So sva is like a prefix that is like self-reflexive. So svadhyaya in the niyamas, the study of the self. So here, svarupe is like the essential nature of self. And then avasthanam is translated usually as like stands free. So there's another root word that you might have heard before, stha, S-T-H-A, but it's not tha, like Seth. It's the TH is a little bit subtly, it's pronounced differently. You pronounce the H. So it's stha. And in this case, it's also found in like urvasthasana or loka samastha. There's that same root. And it effectively means to stand. And then avasthanam, ava, away, off, or down. So to stand away from, or to stand free from. And I'm referencing a lot of these translations from the outstanding work of Reverend Jagannath Carrera in Inside Patanjali's Words. I absolutely love it. But the specific translation I'll share is from Sri Swami Satchidananda, another classic, iconic translation of the Yoga Sutra. And his translation is just very simply, then the seer, parens, capital S, self, abides in its own nature. Then the seer, the self, abides in its own nature. And one way to start thinking about this is a prompt of thinking that I'll summarize very as briefly, which is that every single one of us has a physical form, right? You're occupying this rental car meat sack of a body. And so it informs our experience in the material world, but we're also capable of observing it, and it changes. And the body you have at the age that you are encountering the sound of my voice is not the body you had 10 years ago. And it's not the body you will have in 10 years. The body is changing and changes all the time. And you can observe the body. So if the body informs your experience, but the body is not your experience. So you are not your body. Okay. So now you have like sensations. You have things like the 5 or there's models that talk about like 33 different senses, right? Sense of touch, sight, sound, smell, all those things. Like, so you have these senses and you can observe them. So you're not your sensations, right? And then your sensations like trigger thoughts and feelings. And with some practice, you can observe your own emotions, and your emotions change very quickly, right? Sometimes as little as 20 seconds is the actual duration of one emotional state, according to some research. I wish I had a citation for that, but I don't. But like, you know it from your own lived experience. You can literally go from elated to deflated in like 1 second. One word from that one person that just pierces you can change your whole emotional state, like in a nanosecond. So you can observe that though. And then so you have feelings, and your feelings are real. They're not the truth because they change so fast. They're not like capital T truth. And so then you have feelings, you're not your feelings. And you have thoughts, because if you actually really take that mental step back and you practice that, you start to become capable of observing your thoughts. Ooh, like there's that thought, Seth. Oh, wow. Who's thinking that? Like, who's that crazy guy? Right? Who's that crazy guy? So you have these thoughts, but you can observe your thoughts. So who is observing your thoughts, your feelings, your body? Who is that? Right? That's the idea of the seer, since there's nothing to chew on there. But let's keep chewing on it. Sarah Page, is there a translation of this verse that particularly calls to you?
Yes. Actually, you got it the first time. You got the one that I was looking at. But I also really love the Light on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali by Iyengar. And what most of the translations that I looked at pretty much verbatim say the same thing. He goes a little differently. Then he says, then the seer dwells in his own true splendor. I just love the word splendor. It's I don't know, it's sparkly, it's lovely, it's really it sees the self beautiful. Splendor.
I love that he uses the word splendor too.
Yeah, and everything else I looked at, including, pretty much it all says true nature, true this. And I think, how often do we really see each other as splendor? It's a beautiful word.
Not often enough.
Lord, no. So I just love that. I love that.
Love that. Sally, how about you?
So when I was looking through all my books, I actually wrote down 3. That's usually how I do things later. But right now, if you just give me a moment, I'd love to share this. So the first one, I go to her all the time. It's The Secret Power of Yoga by Nishala Joy Devi. And she says, united in the heart, consciousness is steady, then we abide in our true nature, joy. So I feel like she gave the little sequence of events, but then Ruben Vasquez, who has Unravel the Thread, is his website, his book. And his says, as a result, embodied presence. But he goes on to say that this sutra tells us what happens when we successfully regulate our ways of being or our internal activities. So once again, I think they're tying all these 3, bringing us here with the one. But then the third one, Reverend Jagannath Carrera, this is inside the Yoga Sutras, he says, then the seer or the self abides in its own nature. But in the commentary, I saw something, what I considered a very powerful example. And he said, at some point in your grade school years, you were probably asked to memorize a poem to recite the next day. Fear. What did you say when you knew that poem perfectly? I know it by heart, not by head or mind or brain, but I know it by heart. The heart implies the totality of the mind, something deeper and more stable than the usual thinking apparatus. To have a pure heart is to have a clean, steady mind, the state of Nirodha. And I was like, whew.
Are we hearing all of the beautiful words? Splendor, joy, heart.
Yeah, like that just rocked me back a minute.
Well, I just think we do say, I know it by heart.
Yeah,
when
we
you
say, I know it by
truly
heart.
embody something.
Yeah, when you know it
in
by your bones.
heart. And to me, the seer, that's where united in the heart. You got to bring that heart. I don't know. Maybe the seer resides in the heart. I don't know. But because I was looking at them and same thing. A lot of them are going straight to Sutra 1.3, the result of doing 1 and 2.
Right,
but
right.
I was like, how weird. Why is it that we say, oh yeah, I got it. I learned that by heart. Like you never hear someone, I learned that by brain.
I'm going to look that up, actually. I'm going to look that up. Where did that come from?
Mind blown.
All right. Good night, everybody.
I mean, seriously, like Sally, drop the mic because
But seriously, you all, this is the brilliance. We can study this over and over and over again. And this is the amazing thing. Like we said, I love what we're doing because to me, we're bringing it back to an oral tradition where we're discussing it because it's really hard to write this down. And then I did think, wow, this was a great example about knowing things.
I was talking today. I saw this Ram Dass quote on Instagram, and I try to spend very little time on Instagram. I know we should be doing more to promote the podcast on Instagram, and we're going to try to find somebody. I actually have someone more. We're going to reach out to her. It's 100% not me. It's like, it doesn't draw, I don't find it attractive, to my mind. And I have thoughts about, I also have a career in technology. And so I sort of feel like I also know a little bit too much anyway. And sometimes you catch something really beautiful and really brilliant. And Ram Dass, who's a spiritual teacher who I've always found very I've always found his words and his approach and his just humanness so attractive in the sense of I find my mind feels very comforted and soothed when I listen to him. And as a huge shout out, the Live Serve Remember Foundation has just an unbelievable resource. Excuse me. And let me get the name right because I want to cite it accurately. It's, where's my, on Spotify, you can find, there it is, Ram Dass Here and Now. And it's from the Ram Dass Love Serve Remember Foundation, which is his foundation. And there are 297 episodes of Ram Dass goodness that they just give back to the world. Anyway, so I was listening to this quote on Instagram, and it was Ram Dass, and he was talking about how like there's a story, a parable of a man who was like unfairly imprisoned, and so his wife tied a piece of like a single strand of silk to a beetle, and she sent the beetle up to the tower to her husband. And at the end of the line of silk, she tied a thread. And at the end of the thread, she tied a string. And at the end of the string, she tied a rope. And finally, when he kept pulling, he got the rope. And eventually that's how he was able to then like find freedom from his imprisonment. And the teaching is that like, if you have ever been lucky enough to start to encounter spiritual truth, your first experience of it might have just been the tiny strand of silk. And if you kept going, like someone, hopefully a teacher, maybe if you're lucky, or maybe just by your own, again, the attraction of your mind, you know, something stimulated you to like tie a thread to the strand of silk and to find a little bit more. And then you kept pulling that thread and you got to a string, and you kept pulling the string and you got to a rope. And then you eventually like tied enough of that rope. And how every single one of those phases of progression of spiritual practice is for that sense of like liberation. And there's something about that, knowing it in the heart, that like you don't need to rationalize. You don't need to like knowing it by heart means like you don't even have to think about it. You just know it. Like when you, to go back to that reference of like memorizing it by heart. And it's like, I think part of what's so amazing about this study, I think that's something that has attracted all three of us, and maybe a couple of you out there too. Like the deeper we explore these ideas and how every time we come back to them, like there's something like fresh and deeper to explore. It's like we're tying on another string at the end of the last one and we're pulling it to go further. Right. And it's a knowing. It doesn't even feel like a knowing from without. It feels like a knowing from within. Right. It feels like something that arises from within you, as opposed to something that's been granted or conferred upon you.
I did look up where this came from.
Oh, please.
Know it by heart. And it's fascinating because it's all related. Of course it is. It comes from ancient beliefs that the heart was the seat of memory, emotions, and intellect rather than the brain. But then it goes down, like it cites some more, and it goes into, and I love this, while not scientifically accurate today, the phrase implies knowing something so deeply that it's internal rather than just memorized.
Yeah.
Knowing something. And so if you take it back to the sutra, knowing yourself so deeply, knowing ourselves so deeply that it is internal. It's not just something that we spout out. We know it. I love that. Yeah. Thank you, Sally.
Seriously. And because like that's how this truth like unfolds. It's like we keep pulling the thread. And again, and it starts with both like that sense of observation. Like if you think about what it takes, I'm going to keep riffing on this. Like the first time you encounter like that poem you wanted to memorize, like something about it like resonated to you, to me. Like I remember actually, for me, one of them that I memorized when I first read it in junior high school, and then I memorized it in high school, the full love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. And I used to be able to recite the whole thing. Shall we go then, you and I, like the evening dance upon the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. I don't even know why I just pulled that out of, because I know it by heart. Right? I hadn't thought about those opening lines in a minute, and I just like summoned them. I don't know if it was totally accurate, but like it's probably pretty close. But like something about that poem and something about how like this character who was like sort of unrequited and uncertain, and he has to dare. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute, there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. There's another line from that poem. Do I dare disturb the universe? In a minute, there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. Like something about that, just like, even as like a 8th grader, just like rocked me.
But I like which a minute will reverse. It goes back to what we were talking about, what the sages are talking about, which is nothing is permanent. How we feel now is completely different than how we feel.
It's a vritti, right? Like it's just going to spin you right round and round and round again. They knew it in the ancients. T.S. Eliot knew it. Like we're all just dancing around the same truth. Like that, like moment to moment, the mind will just spin and spin and spin. And that is partially, in many ways, like it is the nature of the mind to spin. It's just going to keep on spinning. And then there's this question of like, can we even just start by like watching it spin? Like, you know how there's this, like, I don't know about you guys, yoga was a huge source of this stimulus. How like, when you think about like when you started your practice, you started your asana practice, and you'd go to a mat and you'd get on the mat, and then there's poses that would frustrate you. And then you started being like, there's that pose that frustrates me again. Like, hi, frustration. That's familiar. And instead of like feeling like it's like the thing that you are, it's a thing that you feel. And you can start to observe it. Like the same way you start to like develop a sense of proprioception. Proprioception is like the ability to discern the physical placement of your body in space, right? To know like my hand is about even with my head. I'm not like looking at that right now, right? This is in front of my face. This is behind my face. Like, you know, and like you start like is a yogic siddhi, you could say like a yogic power. Cause like if you're practicing without mirrors, you have to just like feel where your body is, right? Look with your feeling eyes is what one of my teachers says. Like as in you don't need to look down at your feet. You can just feel where they are. Takes a minute. But like, that's what you practice. You practice that like observation. And then you start to like practice that in your mind. And you start to say, oh, like there's that poem that like I loved. There's that idea that just like every time I stumble onto it, it just like, it feels like something that's like I'm remembering it and I'm remembering it again and I'm remembering it again. And like, and these ideas that we come back to again, it's like, I'm just remembering it again. Like the way I just like rattled off a line of that poem that I hadn't thought about like in a minute, but like I'm remembering it again. And so you start to say like, wow, look at those thoughts go. Look at them go. And then you start to like trace the pattern of them. Like, oh, when I get poked like that, when that thing gets touched, this particular sort of flavor of the thoughts, or this like tone of those thoughts gets like, you know, like I love that saying that like, you know, it's like when I'm with my family, there's a whole lot of those buttons. Right. And, you know, there's this thing like, I love this one that your family knows how to push your buttons because they installed them.
Laughing just a little too hard.
Right. Like no one knows how to push your buttons like your family because they literally installed them. So like, right. There's like, but you start again, then you start to say like, wait a minute. I know that button. I know that vritti, and I like don't want to be the guy that's just like spun off into the chaos of my own mind, because that person is doing the thing that is the thing that they do. So now I can say, oh wait, there's that sequencing. There's that series of thoughts. And that's when you start to find and feel into this sense of the observer, like this true self.
You know, it's crazy. I am really stuck on this heart thing. Like just from the minute I saw that description, I got really stuck on it. And what I think I have realized for myself is I always think of like my learning style. You know, we have different learning styles, and I'm a person that likes to touch it, feel it. Like I don't do very well reading a book and regurgitating, but I feel like my whole life at school, what I heard them say is like, you're not smart. You can't memorize. Why can't you just read this and do well on the exam? Like exams were really hard for me if it was just memorize it today and regurgitate it tomorrow. But what I realized is, so what I think I learned, and finally, yippee, I'm seeing something differently, is I learned to try to be the person people wanted me to be. It wasn't my true self. I was trying to, like, you got to be the person that can get an A on the exam so they're going to like you. You got to be the person that can memorize everything so they're going to like you. So I think that I had got this habit as a little girl to quiet the seer, my true self. And I think I kept her quiet because I was so busy trying to show up the way I thought the world wanted me to show up. And I'm realizing, like, wow, what a deep, deep habit that is. And I'm curious now, like, really, can I welcome this seer who has stepped every single step of my life? She's been with me every step. And I think sometimes still that little bit of flutter I tend to get in my chest or tightness is probably the seer wanting to stand forward and me going, hold on, is it safe? Like, and I'm just having this like moment of, wow, can I hold space and see her? This afternoon, I was putting my grandson to sleep, and it's my favorite, rocking him. And when his little eyes like kind of looked like Seth when he was jet lagged. But I'm looking into this baby's eyes, and they're kind of looking at me and then rolling back in his head.
Yeah.
And I just was thinking while I was looking at him that just I saw just beautiful. And I didn't necessarily physically see him. I just saw a baby trust me so much that they could let their eyes close down and just melt. And it was funny because that entire experience, I was like, what that is, I think, seeing something through your heart. And I'm wondering what my life would look like if I could steady myself and see the beautiful, powerful parts of me that are brave and courageous versus criticizing. It was also the 100th day of kindergarten last week, and my grandson said, can you just dress me up so I look like her? Me. E. You know, with that
I would do
hair.
that. I would go to kindergarten dressed like
No,
Sally.
I'm just like laughing because can I be sweet and kind to my gray haired self?
Well, you know, this is what we always say, isn't it? This is what we always say, right? We would never talk to our best friends or our grandchildren the way that we speak to ourselves. I want to speak to this because what you're speaking to a lot, Sally, in my mind is samskara, the samskaras that we carry with us from when we're small and the wound. And Satchitananda has all of these beautiful analogies in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, all these beautiful analogies, but I've got them all underlined, and all of a sudden I see this paragraph that isn't underlined, and I'm like, why didn't I underline this? Because now it speaks to me. The seer, Sally, Sarah Page, Seth, can never misunderstand nor forget itself. But we are talking about a level of reflection. The reflection, that chitta, whatever it is that's swirling, the vritti, is distorted. So you appear to be distorted. The true you, the baby that's being rocked, that is the true you, is always the same. But you appear to be distorted or mixed up with the mind. By making the mind clean and pure like a baby, you feel that you have gone back, or you appear to have gone back to your original state. So finding that samadhi, to find that moment of purity, because we still have it. And that's what we think. I forget. I'll speak from I forget I'm still there. You know, I'm still there. And I'm not going to, it's something that I've been working on, and I am making, baby steps towards really not letting the outside noise affect me, because I know who I am. I really do. I know who I am. And so the outside, people who don't, whatever, don't align with my thoughts, my beliefs, that's fine. That's totally fine. But I'm not going to make it about me. It's not about me. And I think it's interesting too. I was talking with some people about this morning, actually, how at the bottom of all of this, getting up in front of people, I'm dyslexic. So Sally, when you talk about, getting up and exams were just, I'm literally, my palms are sweating now. But I wonder how much of all of this is fear, the distortion, the dissonance, all of that. At the underlying level of this is just flat out fear. People are angry because of fear. People are jealous, paranoid, neurotic because of fear. And what are we afraid of? Probably finding our true self.
Well, that is the fear, right? Because it's like, because the fear is of the unknown, of the unknowable, that like, well, if I'm not my bank account, if I'm not the designer clothes, the car, if I'm not my perceived status, then like, what am I?
But Sarah Page, you're right on it, because right inside Patanjali's words, something by Reverend Jagannath Karara, something I underlined right before we came on was, when we say that the seer stands apart, we mean the seer experienced as it is, free of the overlay and correlations of our biases, hopes, fears, and conceptions. And then can I just add one more thing in the next chapter, in the next paragraph that he says that I also underlined? The seer doesn't fully express in an individual until the confusion between the pure eternal consciousness that is the seer and the seen as the body mind is removed. Removing this confusion is the end goal of all yoga practice and theory.
When we talk about the seer, and I love when you talked about your grandson, Sally, I could listen to you talk about your grandchildren like all day. But one of the things, and I don't know that people know this, the root chakra, the Muladhara chakra, the element is earth, and you come with that fully formed. It is spinning. It is not stuck. The other chakras develop along the way, but the root chakra is developed when you're born. And think about it. Of course it is. You've been fed, you're warm, you're well taken care of, you're loved, you're wanted. There is no fear in your mother's womb, I guess. I mean, I don't remember personally, but I would assume that there is no fear.
My mom's womb was kind of scary personally, but
but you know what though? But you didn't know that.
You didn't know what fear was or any of that. So anyway, I mean, my mom's womb was good. So I just know that it was like, I know that. So then when you're born secure. And I mean, you come out screaming because who wants to leave? But it's like, everything is good. Everything is good. And then you're fed and you're held and you're swaddled and you're asleep on your grandma's chest, or you know that she's going to rock you to sleep and you're secure. And it's when that first thing happens, the first samskara, the first moment of realizing, hurt, pain, whatever it is, that's when the root chakra stops. And I just think can we just love each other a little bit more and see each other a little bit more purely? That's a word. I don't know if y'all have noticed that I'm a word freak. It keeps coming up. Pure. The seer is pure.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, there's this sense that like, this abode of the heart, like to know by heart. One of the things I love it's usually attributed to, I think it's Socrates, that all learning is remembering, right? Like all learning is remembering. Like we're just remembering this. We're remembering that there was a time when we didn't tell ourselves how awful we were because we didn't know how. We just didn't. And like, and something that's
And we weren't conceited.
No. It's like,
It was pure.
you know, it's the joy of watching children play, just play for the pure sake of play without knowing the rules of that play. Like kids, the imagination of children is just, it's just incredible to bear witness to and to see and to then like remember that there's like a purity of heart with little kids, because they don't know how to be like, they learn how to be mean to themselves, right?
Yes.
Like we learn how to be mean to ourselves.
Or to each other.
And to each other, right? We learn that. We learn it by our cultural entrainment. We learn it by what we see at home. We learn it by what we see among other ones of our friends. Like children have a much easier time being kind to each other because it seems like it's much closer to their true nature. At least in a lot of circumstances. I don't want to say all, but you know, since I'm the only one here who's not a parent.
No, by and large, you know, they have to learn.
Really, like by and large, kids like, you know, it's easy for kids to learn how to be kind because it sort of comes naturally. And as I think about like, what does it mean to dwell in our own true splendor? What does it mean to abide in our true self? And what does it mean? Like, there's a sense of like how, I think when we find the right path, like for each, and it's, you know, it's a deeply personal journey, but it feels like coming home, right? It doesn't feel like going away. It feels like coming home. And, I was saying today how, you know, part of like what was so special for my experience recently in India was like, it didn't feel like I went there to discover something about myself. It feels like I just remembered, like that place helped me remember like something that was just right there, and it was from within. I didn't have a moment that was like revelatory in the sense of like from without to within, right? As if I was told or given something. It didn't feel that way. And maybe it would in another context. I don't know. Maybe it will next time. I don't know. But this time, what it felt like was like letting go of what was in the way of what I just knew to be true. Like that. And again, and it was like, there was a sense of like an observation that like, this doesn't feel new or like foreign to me. There's the seer, like just sort of watching my own experience, and a sense of self that it wasn't like for anyone else. It's not for anyone else. It was like just a deep knowing from within. It was like, it's just been there. And I just got some really great stimulus to remind me of it.
I have to say that being in India with you is one of the most beautiful moments of my life, to be honest, to see you receive. It is a chaotic country. And that you, and it is life. It is life. It is yin and yang. It's all of the things. And I love India. But to watch you at one point, I have to just put this in there. Seth was in the middle of the marketplace in Udaipur, and he just stopped, and the scooters, the tuk-tuks, the cows, everything.
We were right by the big Jagannath temple.
Yeah, yes.
And there's like
he just stopped. And I'm thinking, okay, he's stopping, and this is the end of my life right now. And I'm looking at him, and he just goes, arms out. He goes, I love this country. And I just, for me personally, Seth, to see you, but that was like pure brilliance. It was pure, and I was looking up splendor. You know, it was splendor. It was just a reception.
Yeah, it was a splendid. It was like, It was like, there's like all this chaos. We're right by this like 500-year-old temple. And there's like, it's like beautiful and it's filthy and it's like so spiritual and it's like loud and chaotic. And there's this just like person selling flower, like the most beautiful and like flower garlands, right, to make as offering to the deities inside. And then like, other just like super base, like capitalistic commercialism going on, all like, and it's all at the same time. And, I did have that moment of just like, it just was like I just felt like in the flow of that moment.
It is a
And
snapshot in my brain for the rest of my life.
and I just loved it. And like, but like even that, it was like, it just felt like, again, it didn't feel like it was coming from without to within. It just felt like
Organic.
it's what's always been there. And I just got out of my own way.
That's what
that's a
I'm thinking
great-
about this study. Like I'm
Right.
thinking,
I just got out of my own way.
exactly. I feel like so often in the world out there, we're don't do that, or my 2-year-old granddaughter got in trouble today for not listening to the teacher. And the teacher was great. She was like, look, you're in charge of your body, you're in charge of all this, but when it's time to put the toys away to have lunch, like this is what we're going to do. So we're talking, but I'm tying this back to it because all this kind of just happened in my head. I'm wondering if so much of how we learn as we move through the world is outside. How do you show up outside? But how much training or teaching has someone given you to pause and trust from inside out? And so when you describe this situation, I'm seeing inside out because I've been trying really hard to talk to both my grandkids get in trouble at school. But I've been actually
I think they're going to be okay.
to talk to them a little bit about how did it feel? You're not disrespecting the teacher, you're actually disrespecting yourself. Like and how does it feel when you stand up for yourself and each other? Like I don't know, maybe I just grew up in a different family, but I don't feel like I learned much about the inside out. I just learned like, oh, you made a mistake, you're bad.
What did you do? My mother used to say, what did you do? Like if I would say, like if I would say the teacher was mean to me or whatever, or this person was mean to me, I used to think that it was really pretty good. But now that you're mentioning it, Sally, she would make me take responsibility for myself, but I took all the responsibility, which has
that's the fine line. That's what we're learning here.
Yeah.
Can we take full responsibility for our lives? I believe in taking responsibility.
Yes.
But take the responsibility to be kind to yourself and teach. Don't push the little wisdom, the seer, down, because the seer allows you to like say, oh my God, in the middle of all this chaos, I can like everyone throw your arms out and really take it in, That's the wisdom from inside. And sometimes the wisdom's like, no, look, there's a snake and a cow and this is not the time to do that,
Totally. And, I think about like, I had a different manifestation of the same idea where like, in my case, it was more like, I was generally generally a very good kid. Now, in my case, though, it was because there was something else about me that was so terrifyingly bad that if I could be and endear myself to adults, especially, it was safe because then when the other kids made fun of me, I had someplace to go. And when and in that, I could be good because school did come very easily for me. And, Seth, always a pleasure to have in class. And I ingratiated myself to teachers. I learned the way institutions work, and I use that to create a sense of safety. Because in my case, it was like, there was that little voice that was like, you're not like all these other kids who, when they're starting to talk about girls, like, you don't want to talk about girls. Like and I didn't even have the words to describe it, except that I just knew it wasn't good. Right? Like, I just knew it was bad and it was different. And that, like, those are scary things for little kids to try to vocalize. So I just, like, that was how I pushed that down. Like, that was how, like, I survived it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to think about, like, what if we reminded kids that they already know. You just have to pause and listen. Right? You just have to pause, and then, like, yes, there's times when you just have to do what adults say. That's part of what it is to be a kid, right? But there's also there's autonomy that you have as a kid too, like, over your body, right? Over a certain, like, there's a way to teach that.
Does it make you comfortable? Yeah.
Right. And, like, what would happen if we actually conferred that kind of empowerment for children, and what kind of world would we be living in?
I have one thing.
And what if we just did that for ourselves right now? Like, right now. Sorry, Sarah Pitch, you have one thing to say.
Yeah, one thing
we got to start
to say,
wrapping it up.
And then I know. And so I'm going to make this quick. I think I've mentioned on here before that my daughter has Down syndrome. And I've often said, so many times people would come up to me and go, "Oh, she's so loving." I'm like, "No, she's really, no, she's got a side to her. She's not, she is my child after all." So, and she's human. However, what I noticed was, and this is what I would say to people when they'd say, "Oh, first of all, it was these kids," but, or they, they're so sweet. And I said, the reason that my daughter is so kind is that people have been nothing but kind to her because she had special needs. And I said, if we treated all kids, smartest ones in the class, the ones who struggle and are shy, the ones who just seem a little spectrum-y, whatever, if we treated all kids with the same amount of love and just, respect that my daughter was treated with by everybody that she came in contact with, they felt over themselves to be nice to her because she had Down syndrome. Kids would be in a much better place, I think. Now, that's not all kids with special needs, obviously, but she was not bullied. She was not, she was just loved. And so as a result, she really loves people. If we treated all kids that way, instead of with impossible expectations, well, you're not potty trained by this time. What's wrong with you? You're not speaking by this time. What's wrong with you? Well, we didn't have that. All of her milestones were met with extreme pride and joy and happiness. And why don't we just do that now instead of expectation?
What if we just treated each other that way?
That's what I mean. And then we just grow up that way.
Like, no, but I mean, even now, like,
yes,
I think, like, if as we start to think about how we wrap this up, and, like, because obviously, there's fewer bigger subjects that we could talk about than what it is to, like, be our most authentic selves. What is that self, and how do we even observe and start to discern the difference is just a true lifelong journey of practice and study. I don't know, what inquiry does that inspire for you, Sally? Because I know you always, especially, like, you're the one who really brought us this idea of the knowing by heart.
Yeah, it's funny. I keep changing what I think my inquiry for this week's going to be, but what I'm with right now is, do you greet yourself and each other through your heart? Do you listen to a reoccurring thought that is stopping you from living from your heart?
That's a powerful and very challenging observation, but there's no better. There's no better. Yeah. Sarah Page, what's an inquiry that really starts sitting, that you'll be sitting with this week?
Remember. Can you remember when you were not hurt? Can you remember back to when you were a true seer? Can you remember back? And then sit down with it, meditate on it, write it down, really bring it back into your bones and into your memory, even if for a second, so that you get that moment of magnificence and splendor and abundance.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I think I'm just sitting with, what do I know by heart? Like, what do I really know by heart? Like, what do I know in my bones? Like, what do I know in my heart that like no one has ever had to teach me, that no one can ever take from me, that I don't have to validate with anybody or explain? Like, what do I really know by heart? Um, I was saying too how like I had this experience of I went to summer camp. I was, very privileged to be able to do that. And like, I went 2 summers to a camp. And the second summer, the boys were very mean to me. And so I didn't go back. And that had a whole set of other samskara. But I went to another camp in Colorado. And every Sunday at this camp, it was run by a couple of hippies, and it was like not like sportsy. It was much more about discovery and the outdoors, and like 100 acres of land surrounded on 3 sides by national forest and preserves. You could go hike in the backcountry for days. To this day, I can still walk up to and address a horse and like get on a horse and ride Western style. It shocks people when on the rare it does, but I know how to ride a horse. So I did it when I was a kid. Anyway, and so every Sunday night at this camp, we would have a little cookout like behind the camp with your tent, because all week you'd go off and do different stuff, and then you'd like come back together, and then we'd hike up to this little mountain, and the camp was at like 8,000 feet elevation, and so we hike up another 1,000 feet or so, and it opened up. I remember this so clearly, like onto this pristine like mountaintop valley, and there were these rolling hills of undisturbed meadows, and like we would sit and sing like John Denver songs, and they would read like John Muir quotes, and they would time it to be over at sunset, and there was always silence, and then there would be a silent hike down. And I remember I was probably 11 or 12. The stillness of those sunsets, like the transcendence. I didn't have that word. Right now, I would say I felt real like transcendence. I felt like a truly embodied, full, unencumbered, pure connection to something bigger, like to some force of creation, like nature, God, I don't know. I had none of those words like were enough to describe what that felt like. Like that's something I know by heart. I got something I know by heart. I think some of that informs my spiritual practice to this day. Like because I have a touchstone to that. Like, right. Like that's something I know by heart. And I also knew it was different than what I was told, like how to find God. And that was tricky to reconcile, but that's another conversation. All right. So we're going to give one quick teaching tip. Let's give a quick teaching tip. Whether you teach asana classes, all 3 of us do, or you're just, a teacher to someone in your life, because you are, if you're listening to this podcast, like welcome. But like you get to give something to somebody. So, Sarah Page, like what's a teaching tip for you this week?
That's an interesting thought. Even if you don't teach, I was going to say, and it goes a little deeper, introduce something different into the class, like a strap. I did a strap practice this week, and you would have thought I was asking them to be in barbed wire. But what it did was it just, at the end of it, they took their
straps. It shakes people up.
It does. And they took their straps and like threw them down. It was like, but the point of it is, and even if you don't teach asana, introduce something different into your life. If you teach the asana, notice what it is that it is triggering. I don't love that word, that it's inspiring, that it's bringing forth in people, and why. Just when you introduce something different, when you're used to doing things the same way, and then all of a sudden let's throw a strap in there, and no. So it goes deeper. You can't go on your mat you can't be on your mat without it correlating to your life.
That's for sure. Sally, what's a teaching tip for you this week?
So I'm gonna speak to the foundation. I think building your life and your practice through your foundation, like really engaging from where your feet are, not where your mind might be, where your feet are. And I'm just gonna offer to, if you notice self-doubt, run it through your heart.
Yeah, I think my teaching tip this week is going to be like, what if it's all like, what if for this 1 hour that you're in here, stuck in here with me, and you're stuck with me now? What if for this 1 hour, it's all like you let it all be exactly just as it is.
Mm-hmm.
You, imperfect, out of balance, stumbling, fumbling, breathing, focused, distracted. Like, what if you just let that all be? Like,
And let it be okay.
Let it all be okay. Thank you. That's like that. It's all okay. It's like, it's all okay. It's all just what's happening. All you got to do is observe it. Like, what if you just watch it? What if you just watch it all go by? You're the one standing, you are in the stream and you are standing on the bank of the stream. So just watch, like, and literally try to change none of it. None of it. You came to class, show up to class, and let it all just be as it is, and don't try to change anything. And when you notice the resistance, go toward it. Breathe into it. Be curious about it. Whether or not you have a moment of then sort of falling into it, and then, oh, okay, I fell into it. Cool. Like, then I step back out of it. And just dance in that. Like, let that be the dance of your practice. It's all okay. You're okay. You're okay when you're in a gorgeous, beautifully integrated expression of a pose. And you're okay when you're fumbling or falling flat on your face. You're okay when it's messy. You're okay when it's beautiful. You're okay. You're okay when you're distracted. And you're really okay when you're present. I'm like, it's okay. Like, what if it's just okay? What if it's all okay? Like, how would that class go for you?
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. I try to tell myself that as a teacher all the time. Like, Seth, just like, it's okay. You're okay. Like, just give a class. Just give a class. That's it. Don't have to make it any more than it is. You're just here to give a class. Anyway. Wow.
Not what I expected.
No.
Never is. Never
Once
is.
again, left turn, right turn,
Up,
turn to
down.
the heart. But so deeply within.
I love this.
God, I will never think about this the same way ever again. I will never think about like what that means to know by heart ever again. I'm just ever.
Thank you, Reverend Jagannath Carrera.
Wow.
I'm going to try and take some classes.
And now, actually, I'm going to say, Sally, thank you, and thank you, Sarah Page.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you if you are so generous with your time as to listen, if you find some benefit from your experience of our words. We truly do this to be of service. Like, we're not monetizing this podcast. You'll hear there's no commercials. We don't even have a funding mechanism. Like, maybe if you really love it and you want to help us with it, I don't know, reach out to me or leave a comment or something. I don't know, figure it out. You can check us out at sutrasquad.com. And I think there's a contact us. Maybe I should fix that, make sure it's there. One day, hopefully enough people will want to do that. But right now, really, we're doing this to be of service. And so the most powerful way you could be of service in this immediate moment to the community we're building around this study is just subscribe, like, leave a comment, leave a review, and send it to someone who you think might benefit as well. Again, like, please share it. We're not looking like this isn't, thank God all of us are privileged enough that we get to do this. And it's really, we were talking before about how this is seva. This is a service for us. And it's just, I just am like so overwhelmed with gratitude for the both of you, for your friendship, for your your co-studentship, your inspiration, your challenging, your challenge, and just your generosity of heart in every possible way. Like, I know that by heart.
I know that by heart.
So grateful. Life-changing. Thank
Yeah,
you.
life-changing.
Always.
All right.
Always.
Wow. Okay. So, I gotta wrap this up.
Yeah.
So with so much love, we are so deeply grateful for every single one of you who has heard the sound of our voices, and, stay with us. We'll be back with you again soon with another episode of Sutra Squad. For now, namaste and goodbye.
Namaste.
Namaste.